Transformative moment. Broken dad uses his last $5 for diapers. CEO's incredible gesture revealed. Jake stood before the stark, empty fridge, a hollow pit in his stomach echoing the emptiness inside. His crumpled $5 bill felt like a weight pressing against his palm. A fleeting thought pierced through his haze of despair. Could he really survive another day without food? Lily's laughter rang in his ears, but the sound twisted into something painful as he imagined her small face lighting up over fresh diapers. The very decision felt like a gut punch: diapers for Lily or bread for himself. The gnawing hunger and the image of his daughter's needs collided fiercely within him, a brutal internal struggle that suffocated his pride. Beneath the bright suburban sun, shadows loomed, and as the day dragged on, his anxiety escalated. Each job application felt like tossing a bottle into an ocean, his hope dwindling as days and weeks morphed into a blur. Every time the phone rang, wrong number. Every unreturned email, deeper discouragement. He looked at the bill in hand, the misfortune weighing heavily. It was as if the walls were closing in, suffocating his ambitions he fought so hard to maintain for the sake of his daughter. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. A flicker of determination sparked in Jake's eyes. He couldn't ignore his daughter's needs, no matter how desperate his own hunger felt. With a heavy heart and determination laced with fragility, he clenched the bill and stepped outside, each step feeling like an excruciating mockery of every choice he ever made. The sun dipped low, fingering the horizon with orange and pink hues, amplifying his sense of desperation. The convenience store loomed in front of him. Every shuffling footstep was a testament to his love wrapped in the fabric of sacrifice. Across town, Clara had just wrapped up a meeting, her mind swirling with thoughts of what they could achieve if only there weren't invisible barriers holding so many people back. As the compassionate CEO of a thriving tech startup, she felt the weight of unbridled privilege. Her heart ached when she heard about Jake from a friend, working together at the warehouse. She recalled her own nights of uncertainty, the car she called home, and the faces of those who extended a hand when she was down. It was time to respond. Simultaneously, Jake wrestled with a tight, growing unease, haunted by the notion of pride intertwined with scarcity. The thought of accepting charity like accepting pity was unbearable. As night deepened, he whispered a promise to Lily in the flickering light of the leftovers in their fridge, forcing a smile he didn't feel. It was never just his hunger. It was a torrent of guilt ignited by each decision. How had he let this happen? As the sun disappeared beneath the horizon, Clara prepared to confront the very biases she had fought against, ready to extend her hand, yet acutely aware that it could feel like a noose tightening around Jake's dignity. Their lives were poised at a pivotal junction, resonating with unspoken tension. Jake, standing on the precipice of a new chapter, was confronted by the haunting question: would he accept this offer, or would pride inhibit his path to the help he so desperately needed? The silence hung heavy, sending ripples of uncertainty through both their lives. Jake stepped into the convenience store, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh glare on the meager selection of goods. He shuffled through the aisles, his mind in turmoil. His gaze fell on the diapers stacked neatly on the shelf, their packaging bright and cheerful, an ironic contrast to his current situation. Holding the $5 bill felt like clutching a lifeline. It was more than just the money, it was a reflection of his struggle, a symbol of the choices that defined him. He approached the cashier, his heart thudding in his chest as he placed the diapers on the counter. The cashier smiled, a momentary brightness in the landscape of his despair, yet Jake could only muster a tight-lipped acknowledgement. He watched as the cashier casually rang up the purchase, his thoughts veering back to Lily. A fleeting thought crossed his mind: she would never understand the sacrifices made for her well-being. It was a weight he alone bore. Outside, the chill of the evening air contrasted with the fire of frustration simmering within. Walking home, Jake replayed the day's events, the feelings of inadequacy weighing heavily. Every unreturned job application underscored his failures, amplifying his sense of helplessness. He had once been ambitious, dreaming of a future where he could provide for his family without worry. Now, each day felt like a battle, one that he seemed to be losing. As he rounded the corner to his apartment, something unfamiliar flickered inside him. Perhaps it was the indignation at his circumstances. Perhaps it was the idea that he could grapple with this stark reality, rather than merely surrendering to it. He stopped short on the sidewalk, the dim lights casting shadows on the ground. What if he could recalibrate his approach? What if he transformed this bleak chapter into a stepping stone, rather than a stumbling block? That night, after putting Lily to bed, he slid into a chair with his laptop. The screen felt warm beneath his fingers as he searched for job training programs. He found one that intrigued him, a digital marketing course designed for individuals seeking new skills without significant financial pressure. It struck him as an opportunity to pivot. He didn't need to wait passively for job offers to come through, he could become proactive. However, a sense of insecurity washed over him. Would this be a futile pursuit, another distraction from the immediate demands of survival? He wrestled with the idea, fighting against the voice of cynicism that warned him against chasing dreams that seemed so far out of reach. Then he thought of Lily, her innocence and reliance on him. His resolve solidified. He had to try. For her, he had to face this challenge head-on. The next morning, he woke with a renewed sense of purpose. He pulled together a plan, envisioning how he could juggle his current responsibilities while immersing himself in this new endeavor. Jake transformed his home into a makeshift study, cluttering the small table with papers, pens, and his laptop. Early mornings and late nights became the norm, as he dedicated himself not just to learning but to stabilizing their future. As weeks passed, he began to see small victories. He grasped concepts that had previously felt foreign, articulating thoughts with more confidence than he had known over the past months. He was evolving from a passive player in his life to an active architect of his future. But amid this growth, an unsettling tension remained. Jake began to question the limits of his pride. Could he continue this journey alone? Was the idea of accepting help not a sign of weakness, but of strength? It was a profound realization, one that shook the very foundation he had built his identity upon. As he clicked away on his laptop, an email notification caught his eye. It was from Clara. The subject line read, "Opportunity awaits." Intrigued yet apprehensive, he took a deep breath, hovering his cursor above the email. Would this be a turning point, or would it further complicate the delicate balance he had just started to establish? The moment felt heavy with potential, stirring the unease within him. And then, just before opening the email, a realization hit him. The trajectory of his life was shifting again, and with it came the truth that he had to embrace the unknown. The question loomed before him: was he ready to step away from everything he had known and face whatever lay ahead with an open heart? Jake's breath caught in his throat as he hovered over Clara's email. The weight of uncertainty was palpable, a tightness in his chest that made every decision feel monumental. Was this really a chance, or just another mirage in his desert of disappointment? He clicked it open, his heart racing. The email detailed an internship opportunity at a burgeoning digital marketing firm. Clara had suggested him, citing his determination and recent forays into the field. The words resonated with promised practical experience, a stepping stone to the career revival he desperately needed. But would he truly be ready? The nagging voice of self-doubt threatened to pull him back into that familiar darkness. He processed the details. The hours were flexible, making it possible to balance work with his training and Lily's needs. It seemed too good to be true, and with each line, his apprehension deepened. Was he capable? His mind spiraled to an endless loop of past failures, steadily eroding his fragile confidence. An internal battle waged as he drafted his response. He could accept the offer and step into unknown territory or decline, playing it safe and holding on to the status quo that offered no real prospects. Each syllable felt heavy, each decision magnified under the pressure of life's stakes. Eventually, he pressed send, a surge of adrenaline rushing through him. Now, with the decision made, he had to prepare. His days became focused, his laptop aged with wear from hours of research, networking discussions, and honing skills he wished to flaunt. He discovered online groups and forums for digital marketers where he could ask questions, share his learning journey, and connect with others who had once walked similar paths. But Jake struggled with the facade of confidence. Every online question he posed felt embarrassing, vulnerability knocked on his door, and he hesitated to answer. The realization gnawed at him that he had to expose parts of himself that were uncomfortable. If he didn't lean into the discomfort, how could he expect to grow? That evening, as he wrapped up another study session, the small apartment felt quieter than usual. Lily's soft breathing from her room reminded him of what was at stake. He couldn't afford to drown silently in his fears, he had to rise above them. But part of him questioned, was it fair to expect her to navigate this new, unpredictable world alongside him? The next day, he joined an online networking event harbored within the depths of the digital realm he was diving into. As faces blinked on his screen, Jake's heart raced. The connection felt overwhelming. He could sense the hopes, aspirations, and ambitions of each participant. And he was just another face in the crowd, but one determined enough to stand out. He engaged with a few strangers, sharing his burgeoning passion for marketing. With every passing minute, he found his voice, discovering a rhythm in the conversation he hadn't anticipated. The knowledge he gleaned began pouring forth, and to his disbelief, others responded positively. By the end of the event, he gleaned a handful of contacts with insights, advice, and even potential mentorship. It fueled the dwindling flame inside him. He was more than just a desperate father, he was a learner, a seeker of improvement. But there remained the tremor of his previous isolation, the fear of accepting his newfound connections. The threads of vulnerability began to weave into uncertainty about trusting others. Jake sat in silence after logging off, pondering whether he could rely on these connections without succumbing to the shame that had shackled him in the past. His phone buzzed. Clara's message arrived like the chime of an alarm clock, awakening him from his thoughts. Excited for you. I can introduce you to someone who might help with the next steps. The gears turned in his mind, a mix of hope and apprehension washing over him. This was the moment to confront his greatest hesitation. Could he ask for help without weakening his resolve? As he stared at the message, he felt the crossroads ahead. Would this be the time to reach out for support, to risk opening up, or would he recoil into isolation once more? His heart raced at the thought as he prepared to type, hesitant yet filled with a sense of urgency. Would he have the courage to take that step? Or would he allow uncertainty to keep him from grasping possibility? The tension lingered like an unshakable shadow, reminding him that transformative moments often accompany fear, yet the true revelation lay ahead. Jake stared at Clara's message, a symphony of hope and fear playing in his mind. Reaching out for help felt like standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into the vast unknown. He could feel the pit deepening in his stomach. Fear whispered insidiously, "What if she thinks you aren't worthy?" But he also heard a steadier voice rising to the surface, one that urged him to act. He took a deep breath, typing slowly at first, unsure what words would emerge from his fingertips. It wasn't just about a casual ask for assistance, it was a plea for validation, for a semblance of belief in the new path he was trying to tread. "Hi Clara, thank you for your encouragement. I would appreciate any introduction you can make." As simple as it was, each keystroke felt like a braver declaration, a small stand against the pervasive doubts that plagued him. After hitting send, Jake experienced a familiar rush of anxiety. Would the invitation be met with warmth or indifference? He shook off the feeling, forced himself to focus on the training material he'd been going over. The world of digital marketing was vast, pulsating with trends, metrics, and strategies. Each session brought him a little closer to the trajectory he envisioned for himself. But he grappled with an unsettling awareness: the knowledge gained in isolation risked becoming nothing more than self-indulgence. He needed real connections. Days turned into a rhythm of late-night study sessions and early morning preparations. Jake began measuring his progress, setting small, tangible goals that transformed intimidating knowledge into manageable pieces. He learned to create engaging content, analyze web traffic, and use social media effectively, but the thread of overwhelming doubt remained. Would this be enough to stand out when the opportunity knocked? Then, the awaited notification arrived. Clara's message pinged on his phone, and Jake's heart leaped. "I'd like you to meet Michelle. She's incredible at SEO and has a wealth of industry experience. Let me connect you two." His breath held as he considered the multitude of scenarios unfolding in his mind. What if he let her down? What if he came off as inauthentic or ill-prepared? The following week, he arranged a call with Michelle, pacing his small apartment as he waited for her to join. He rehearsed his pitch, his introduction, the things he wanted to highlight about himself, his dedication, his evolving skills, and the passion coursing through him. But despite his preparation, Jake felt like an imposter, unworthy of the conversation that was about to commence. When the video call began, he was struck by Michelle's warmth and openness. Her smile instantly put him at ease, dispelling some of the tension that coiled within him. They exchanged casual pleasantries, yet he couldn't shake the feeling of being under scrutiny. His mind raced as he shared his journey, but something shifted as he talked. Her attentiveness and genuine curiosity began to draw out more of his own authenticity, igniting fragments of confidence he struggled to maintain. "Your story is compelling, Jake," she said after he finished. "But remember, it's not only your hardships that shape you, it's how you navigate through them." Her words struck a chord, resonating deeply within him. At that moment, Jake realized he had power over his narrative, and for the first time, he felt the spark of ownership over his past failures. But their conversation soon took a turn. She urged him to discuss specific goals related to his marketing aspirations. To his shock, a part of him hesitated. Would admitting the areas he lacked knowledge in reveal weakness? The tug-of-war began within him again, as he wrestled with revealing vulnerabilities. Could he risk laying bare his struggles in a space where vulnerability might be perceived as weakness? Just as he was about to pull back, he recalled the moments spent in solitude, questioning if he could remain stagnant any longer. "I'm eager to learn. SEO strategies elude me," he admitted, the vulnerability stinging his pride but also freeing his spirit. In that moment of openness, Jake realized the conversation had morphed into the very connection he had longed for. Michelle leaned forward, her eyes glimmering with respect. "That's where growth begins, Jake. Let us develop a strategy together." As they spoke further, the layers wrapping around his fears seemed to unravel. But just as he felt a burgeoning sense of accomplishment, a deep-rooted question bubbled to the surface. Could he still accept help without losing the image of the self-reliant father he yearned to be? The clock ticked ominously. Amidst the newfound solidarity, clarity began surfacing, challenging him to confront his deepest fears. Would he seize this moment of connection to push past his boundaries? It was time to face the complexity of trust, the vulnerability of following through, and the importance of community. Was he prepared to embrace all these elements, or would he retreat once more into isolation? Jake hung up from his conversation with Michelle, the screen fading to black like the curtains drawing on a scene of introspection. He had cracked open a door to vulnerability, yet the shadows outside loomed larger than ever. Acceptance of help, the notion crystallizing in his mind, felt monumental and terrifying all at once. Steeling himself, Jake transitioned into action, the feeling of stagnation creeping beneath the surface, threatening to engulf him once again. He logged onto a community forum for budding digital marketers, a space he'd shied away from, unsure of fitting into the mix. But necessity drove him now. He needed to connect the dots. As he scrolled through threads, he felt a swell of apprehension. Was everyone else racing ahead while he lagged behind? Each post seemed to shimmer with confidence, showcasing projects he couldn't even fathom doing. Yet somewhere within, he felt a flicker of defiance. These people had been where he was, and perhaps it was time to join their conversation. With a deep breath, he crafted a message. "Hello everyone. I'm Jake, transitioning into digital marketing from a background that's been anything but traditional. I'm looking for insights on SEO and could use some mentorship through this learning curve." The words felt solid, a declaration of intent rather than a plea for pity. Before he could second-guess himself, he hit send, watching the message vanish into the digital ether. The response came quicker than he anticipated. An array of supportive messages flooded his inbox, some offering help directly, others sharing resources. Jake felt himself buoyed by the camaraderie, a small but vital network beginning to form around him, an undercurrent of encouragement surging through the anxiety-filled currents of self-doubt. The next morning, he dived headfirst into the new resources, absorbing articles on SEO strategies like a parched man in the desert. Each click felt like a step further from isolation, his fingers flying over the keyboard, propelled by a mix of urgency and resolve. One particular guide struck a nerve: the importance of keyword research, the backbone of digital content. He committed to practicing, mapping out ideas tailored to local businesses to bolster his learning trajectory. Days turned into a flurry of emails and messages exchanged with newfound contacts, discussions transformed into informal brainstorming sessions. Jake's thoughts shifted from self-doubt to strategizing. As his confidence burgeoned, he started feeling the heartbeat of ideas that had once felt foreign, even exhilarating. Amidst this growth, however, the shadow of his past decisions slipped back into focus. He savored small victories but felt the ever-looming specter of financial instability. How could he reclaim his value when his familial responsibilities hung precariously in the balance? The need for tangible progress grew increasingly urgent, like the ticking of a clock that seemed indifferent to his aspirations. On one particularly overwhelming evening, armed with a small budget, Jake found himself eyeing a domain name that could serve as a launchpad for his ambitions. Yet, the memory of his budget and the weight of his family's needs pulled him back. Was it foolish to invest what little money he had into something that could perpetuate the cycle of risk? Then, the phone rang. The voice on the other end belonged to Clara, the lifeline he'd reached out to just weeks prior. She was checking in, but Jake felt a knot tighten in his chest. Should he share his plans, or would that betray his need for self-sufficiency? The conversation took on a life of its own as he found himself detailing his latest projects and strategies he'd been working on. To his surprise, Clara's excitement mirrored his own. "You have to take that leap, Jake. You're transforming, don't let fear clip your wings now." Her words echoed in his mind long after they hung up. His desire to pursue this opportunity swelled, but with every thought of risk came the fear of failure. With the remnants of doubt eating away at him, he felt torn between wanting to embrace this turning point and the relentless pressure to succeed. Was he truly ready to invest not just money but his heart and soul into a venture so uncertain? Jake stared at the screen again, the domain registration page open in front of him, waiting. With his heart pounding, he contemplated one vital truth: every moment spent in indecision was another moment of stagnation. And as he hovered over the purchase button, he realized that he wasn't merely buying a domain. He was making a choice to step away from the self-imposed shackles of deserving less. His finger wavered, the gravity of the moment suspended in time, teetering on the edge of transformation. Would he embrace the potential of becoming more than he had ever been, or retreat into the uncertainties of the past? With a surge of adrenaline, Jake's finger finally pressed down on the button. The confirmation screen bloomed before him, a digital ceremony marking the beginning of a new chapter. The domain was now a tangible representation of ambition, transformation, and, admittedly, risk. In that singular action, he felt an exhilarating mix of fear and hope, igniting a flame that had long been snuffed out by doubt. He took a moment to breathe, to absorb the reality of what he had just done. This wasn't just an investment in a website, it was a bold declaration. Recognizing the cost in more than financial terms, Jake understood he was investing in himself, in his growth, and in the belief that he could create something valuable. Yet, the weight of his responsibilities pressed down on him aggressively. The harsh truth of survival loomed large: his family's needs didn't disappear with a click. He felt the tug of guilt, a familiar adversary. How was he going to provide for them while simultaneously nurturing this fledgling dream? The revelatory thrill of the domain purchase collided with the stark reality of daily demands, a perfect juxtaposition of hope and fear. Over the next few days, he fought through the growing pains of a budding entrepreneur. Ideas raced through his mind as he drafted the outline of his website, composing content that would resonate with local businesses. Every word, touched by his past experiences and current insights, became an attempt to bridge the gap between survival and ambition. He was motivated to integrate his unique perspective into the online landscape. After all, he wasn't merely another marketer. Jake had stories to tell, lessons learned from navigating the hardships of his transition. With each draft, he began tapping into a hidden competence he had long dismissed. His writing flowed more freely than he anticipated, self-expression feeling beautiful and raw, a vital outlet that not only showcased his skills but also allowed catharsis. Then came the moment of reckoning. What would he do to generate income? He turned to his network, the newfound community he had embraced so eagerly. Starting small, he proposed affordable digital marketing packages tailored for businesses seeking an online presence. The first hesitant messages left his fingertips as he pitched his services, battling the pangs of apprehension with determination. He held his breath, waiting for any hint of a response indicative of his journey's potential validation. His heart raced, and each ding of incoming emails sent a shock through him, intertwining anticipation and apprehension. One early morning, silence stirred within him as he sat at his cluttered kitchen table, coffee cooling beside him. Ruminating on the wide expanse of responsibilities and dreams that awaited him, Jake faced a critical decision. Should he accept lower-paying projects that would provide immediate income despite potentially stifling his passion? Or take the risk of holding out for clients whose ambitions matched his own vision? He weighed the implications relentlessly, considering the realities of his family's financial stress against the aspiration of building something sustainable. Would he prioritize quick returns, or could he find the courage to chase value, even when the path ahead felt obscured? The tension hung in the air, every thought oscillating between the need for security and the pursuit of meaningful work. Jake's phone buzzed with the urgency of an incoming message, a lead that had cynically sought quick fixes and expected fast results. Should he respond with traditional offers or remain authentic to his vision? His heart thudded in his chest. It felt as though he were standing on the precipice of an important choice, one that could shift the trajectory of his journey entirely. The moment to act had come. Would Jake claim his value and avoid the pitfalls of trading integrity for stability, or would he succumb to immediate pressures, risking the very essence of what he was trying to create? The stakes were high, and the decisions that lay ahead would define not just his professional trajectory but his very identity as he plunged forward into his renewed purpose. Jake stared at the screen, his heart pounding in his chest. The message flashed bright against the muted background of his kitchen, the emoji-laden text from the lead a sharp reminder of the crass realities of the industry. He could almost hear the cacophony of his doubts echoing off the walls. Was this what he had signed up for? To entangle himself with clients who didn't value the same principles he held dear? A part of him craved the financial relief that this opportunity promised. A quick infusion of cash could alleviate his family's struggles, allowing him to catch his breath for just a moment. But was a hasty decision really worth compromising his integrity and long-term vision? This was the crossroads, and it demanded not just a choice but a defined commitment to who he wanted to become. Taking a deep breath, Jake began typing a message, his fingers dancing over the keys while his mind filled with conflicting thoughts. He drafted a response outlining his services but found himself editing it with urgency. Again and again, he wrestled with the urge to align his offer with the client's disinterested expectations. Instead, he settled on a different approach, one that aligned with his newfound philosophy. He opted to highlight value, emphasizing quality over speed. He framed his message around the idea that success was not grounded solely in immediate gains, but in building a partnership founded on mutual respect and shared ambitions. It felt empowering, taking a stand for what he believed in, even if it meant risking the loss of a potential client. As he clicked send, Jake's mind twirled with lingering uncertainty. Would this stand instead leave him unresolved and empty-handed when he woke up to yet another morning of dwindling finances? The stakes felt suffocating, yet liberating somehow. He was no longer just a man at the mercy of bills and duties. He was a man reclaiming his narrative, regardless of how daunting the path ahead appeared. Within minutes came a reply that felt entirely unexpected. The lead responded with a marked interest, intrigued by his pitch and willing to explore a partnership beyond immediate fixes. A mixture of relief and triumph surged through him. If anything, this mirrored the burgeoning optimism that had begun to take hold, a conviction that authenticity could breed opportunity. With this small victory, his focus shifted to the next task, building his brand. He immersed himself in strategizing how to create content that would not only engage potential clients but also paint a picture of his ethos and vision. Jake found himself experimenting more passionately with design tools, losing himself in the creation of logos and templates that echoed his authenticity. Each design was not just a fleeting artwork, it was a statement of his beliefs. With each brushstroke and keystroke, Jake unearthed more of the creative side he had deemed dormant. Eagerly, he explored statistics and analytics, redefining his understanding of meaningful engagement. He began drafting blog entries, real stories of resilience and struggle that connected with local businesses. Raw and unfiltered, they embodied his journey and skill set in ways he had previously overlooked. Despite his growing excitement, an undercurrent of doubt still flickered within him. Would this new path truly support his family in the long run? Each achievement sparked new questions about sustainability and longevity. His confidence collided with a familiar anxiety. Could he balance ambition with the realities of financial obligations? But then, just when his doubts began to take hold, a notification popped up, a message from another local business interested in his services, intrigued by the content he had begun to circulate. Excitement tinged with disbelief coursed through him. Was the tide finally turning? Jake felt poised on a precipice, the air crackling with potential. The visibility of his efforts was taking shape, but was this sustainable? As he leaned into the opportunity with newfound vigor, he couldn't shake the sense that the challenges he faced were far from over. He reaffirmed his commitment to his path, but that commitment would inevitably be tested. How long could he continue to carve out his own niche while balancing the urgent demands of daily life? Just as he pondered this, an unexpected phone call disrupted his thoughts. A prominent figure in the marketing community wanted to discuss a potential collaboration. Jake's pulse quickened. The universe seemed ready to present another pivotal moment, and he realized he would need to tread carefully. What would happen next, and could he navigate this new relationship without losing sight of what truly mattered? The next chapter loomed ahead, filled with the promise of both opportunity and peril. Jake's heart raced as the call connected. A moment of silence stretched, immersing him in the gravity of the situation. This was not just any collaboration, it was the chance to work alongside a well-known figure who specialized in amplifying brand voices. A small part of him wondered if he had imagined this opportunity, a mirage glowing in the haze of his stress and financial strain. Jake, right? I've been following your recent projects. Impressive work. The voice brought him back, anchoring his thoughts. Thank you, Jake managed to reply, a mix of gratitude and disbelief coloring his response. How had they stumbled upon him? All he could do was engage with authenticity. It had become his mantra, but now it felt almost precarious. The conversation flowed effortlessly, breaking through the awkwardness. They discussed marketing strategies, target audiences, and the nuances that could bolster a brand's presence. Every word from the other party resonated deeply within Jake, igniting a fire that made him more determined than ever not to lose his footing in his values. Let us collaborate on elevating your content, the figure suggested. I can help guide you on impactful campaigns, and you'll have the chance to reach a broader audience. Excitement bubbled beneath his skin, but with it came an alarming question. Would this collaboration force him to trade his principles for profits? The memory of the previous client's message flashed uninvited into his mind. Would he be expected to pander to superficial trends? Can we discuss how your vision aligns with the kind of integrity I'm building? Jake asked, the words tumbling forth with unexpected conviction. I'm not looking just for numbers, I want to create something meaningful, sustainable. That's exactly the spirit I admire, came the response, laden with enthusiasm. People want authentic stories. It's our job to present them authentically. Jake leaned into the honesty of the moment, recognizing that, regardless of the stakes, he had to remain anchored in this budding relationship. They spent time brainstorming ideas, and Jake's usual doubts began to dissolve in a tide of creativity and shared ambition. As the call wound down, a plan began to solidify. They would craft content that reflected his ethos while reaching broader demographics without diluting his message. It felt like a manageable balance, a dance between his ideals and the commercial landscape around him. After hanging up, Jake stared at his reflection in the kitchen window. Feeling invigorated, he finally acknowledged a vital truth: he possessed the ability to forge a path that could harmonize his passion with his financial aspirations. Yet, beneath that newfound confidence, an unsettling voice lingered, a constant reminder of the risks involved. Determined to act, he settled in front of his computer. He started drafting a content calendar that resonated with the vision he had for his brand. Ideas flowed, each one a smaller brushstroke in the larger canvas that was beginning to take shape, and yet, as the sun dipped beyond the horizon, the weight of maintaining this equilibrium felt heavier than ever. Then, mid-typing, a thought flickered across his mind. What if this collaboration didn't work as planned? What if navigating the world of influence and sponsorships led him astray? The fear of losing his identity in the pursuit of recognition was daunting. With that thought, he sketched a plan to remain vigilant about his core values throughout this partnership. Up next would be a meeting to outline their strategy, a pivotal moment that could solidify his new direction or put it in jeopardy. As he prepared, a message pinged from an unknown contact. Swallowing hard, he hesitated before clicking it open, wondering who might be reaching out and whether it would propel him further along this turbulent journey or drag him back into confusion. He took a breath, the screen illuminating with a new unknown. The possibilities weighed heavily, foreshadowing a turning moment with immense potential for both growth and disaster. Would he not only grapple with maintaining integrity but also face unforeseen challenges in this new partnership? Jake sat at his kitchen table, the message still glowing on his screen, a mixture of curiosity and dread swirling in his chest. The title flashed at him like neon lights in a dark alley, tempting yet unsettling. His instinct screamed to ignore it, but a deeper compulsion fostered by his desire for connection urged him to read on, to understand potential opportunities that awaited. He clicked the link. The story unfolded before his eyes, detailing a poignant moment between a struggling father and an affluent CEO who made an unexpected gesture that changed everything. The narrative resonated with Jake in a way he hadn't anticipated. He felt a pull. It was a reflection of human resilience, the potential for kindness that often gets lost in corporate machinations. What would it mean for him, a person striving to maintain integrity in an industry riddled with superficiality, to be the catalyst of a similar moment? Managing his ambitions against his principles had been a tightrope walk, but stories like this stirred something deeper. They called him to reflect on the kind of impact he wanted to have on his audiences, beyond just the metrics of success. As he processed the emotional weight of the article, Jake's fingers hovered over his keyboard. Inspiration ebbed, receding like a tide, exposing the raw sands of his aspirations. Should he embrace stories like the one he had just read and integrate them into his work? His heart resonated with the idea of using his platform to spotlight genuine human experiences rather than succumbing to the pursuit of empty metrics. Jake's mind raced. What if he focused on narratives that uplift and inspire, blending his expertise with the authenticity that seemed so elusive in his recent dealings? This venture, alongside the established figure, could be the avenue he needed to initiate that shift. Determined, he set down a renewed focus on his content calendar. He envisioned creating a series centered around individuals exemplifying resilience and authenticity in the face of adversity. The path was daunting, yet he felt a surge of excitement. This was the bridge he longed to construct between commercial insight and meaningful storytelling. But uncertainty lingered. Would this direction alienate his potential collaborators? Would he face backlash for veering away from more traditional, profit-driven approaches? The specter of doubt loomed, reminding him of the balancing act ahead. Days marched forward at an unrelenting pace, and the date for the meeting loomed closer. Jake prepared meticulously, refining his pitch, rehearsing responses to anticipated challenges. He imagined how his ideas could evoke the same emotional connection he had experienced with the article about the father. As he paced his small apartment, he caught a glimpse of himself in the hall mirror, a man on the brink of transformation. The reflection, once tinged with self-doubt, now radiated a budding sense of purpose. Then, reality hit. He couldn't prepare for every question that would arise. What if they questioned the viability of his narratives? What if they rejected the very essence of his vision? The fear of vulnerability gripped him, and he halted in his tracks, wrestling with that familiar dread. His phone buzzed again, drawing him away from spiraling thoughts. Another message from the same unknown contact. This time it contained an attachment. Somehow, a mix of dread and intrigue overcame him. Were they testing his resolve, or had they come to share something pivotal? With his heart pounding, Jake opened the message, bracing himself for whatever revelation awaited. Perhaps this was just the impetus he needed. Maybe he was about to uncover a connection that could either catapult him toward his vision or send him spiraling back into the shadows of doubt. As the document unfolded, clarity and chaos balanced on a knife's edge. He couldn't shake the feeling that whatever he found within those words would decide not just his next step, but the very nature of his professional identity. Jake sat at his kitchen table, the remnants of the previous day's doubts still hanging over him like a thick fog. The phone buzzed once more, retrieving him from the cusp of his anxieties. It was a simple notification, but in that instant, it set off a chain of realizations that propelled him forward. The document he had opened revealed insights from a marketing partnership forged between genuine passion and strategic ambition. It wasn't merely a marketing guide, it was a manifesto of sorts, detailing how vulnerability and authenticity could be leveraged to resonate with audiences at a profoundly human level. As he read, the pieces clicked into place. This wasn't just information, it was a roadmap that reflected his journey and aspirations. With each sentence, Jake's perspective transformed. He understood that marketing, in its essence, was not only about products or services, it was about connections, about tapping into the heartbeat of individual stories. He envisioned utilizing the power of narrative to craft his brand as one steeped not in the superficiality he had initially feared, but in genuine emotion and real experiences. In that enlightening moment, he made a decision. He would transform his marketing platform into a conduit for authentic storytelling. His goal would not be solely to secure immediate financial gain, but to weave a fabric of connections that would uplift individuals and inspire resilience. He saw how he could amplify the voices of those who shared their journeys, including his own. Before he could second-guess himself, Jake crafted a new pitch for the impending meeting, one that channeled his reflections and outlined his vision of narrative-driven content creation to build authentic relationships. As he typed, clarity surged. His heart raced, but this time it was pulsing with determination rather than fear. The big day arrived. Jake sat at his cluttered kitchen table, preparing not just his words but his entire presence. Clear-headed, he took a deep breath, reminding himself that this was an opportunity to articulate a vision he truly believed in. When the meeting began, he felt the weight of expectation gift him strength. He presented his ideas clearly and passionately, highlighting the importance of genuine stories in a sea of marketing noise. As he spoke, he leaned into his vulnerability. The challenges he had faced echoed through his words. The powerful narratives he hoped to share were not just ideas, they were a testament to his growth. The response from the other party resonated positively. "This is refreshing, Jake," they said, their enthusiasm palpable. A collaborative synergy blossomed, their dialogues reflecting an alignment of shared principles and ambitions. Together, they would create a space where stories mattered. As the conversation deepened, Jake realized that he was not merely participating in a project, he was reclaiming ownership over his narrative. The old wounds he had carried became not chains but badges of resilience, each overcoming a stepping stone toward genuine connection. By the end of the meeting, an agreement had been reached, one that promised a new partnership rooted in collaboration. Jake felt an excitement bubble within him, knowing that he was stepping into his power. True validation had been achieved not through financial transactions but through the acceptance of his beliefs, driving others to recognize the value of authenticity. With a newfound sense of agency, he navigated home, each step an embodiment of his journey. Success was now intertwined with the stories of those he would uplift, a collaborative venture he had never envisioned but desperately sought. Upon re-entering his apartment, he saw the same environment with fresh eyes. He was not just a father struggling to get by, he was a storyteller committed to shaping the narrative of resilience within himself and others. The path forward was still filled with uncertainties, but Jake now embraced them as opportunities for growth. As evening settled in, he opened his laptop once more, ready to capture the stories that would shape his future and the futures of others he sought to support. He understood that every word had the potential to ignite a spark of connection. The journey ahead was brightened by the knowledge that his experience was a strength, not a weakness. Jake stood firm at the intersection of ambition and authenticity, ready to chart a future that promised not only fulfillment for himself but for everyone whose stories he dared to share. Now is the time to take action. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your reactions and theories about this incredible journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformative conclusion. The power of personal overcoming stories resonates. Let us amplify that message.